Well, there's still confusion after Mboweni said government will allocate 5 billion rand to compensate for non-payment of e-tolls. Now, this goes against the Gauteng ANC resolution to scrap e-tolls. The organization Undoing Tax Abuse says the bailout isn't a solution to the failed tolls project, but merely a reshuffling of funds. Well, to discuss this further, I'm joined in studio by Outer CEO Wayne Duvenage. Mr. Duvenage, thank you very much for your time. So the Finance Minister yesterday mentioning his words, saying there's nothing for mahala. Motorists must continue to pay e-tolls. E-tolls are here to stay with us.
No, they're not. And motorists aren't paying, and they haven't been paying. They're down to 25% compliance only.
Well, summonses are going out.
Well, of course, they've been issuing those summonses for 2 years. We have a test case with over 1,200 of our supporters. So all their cases are stayed until we get into the courts. This has been dragged out now for 2 years. That will probably get into court next year. We're very confident of that case. That aside, regardless of the litigation process, this is a drive now, pay later scheme which is grossly inefficient. In fact, it is the most inefficient e-toll scheme or electronic tolling scheme in the world. Over 90% of the costs are going to administration, where the average is below 10%. So the scheme has failed, and we really are amused by the fact that Tito Mboweni says a user pays scheme is an efficient scheme. It is when it's electricity, when you switch the lights on and off, you can switch the electricity off if people don't pay. But in this case, this is not how it works, and our research showed around the world schemes like this fail in the context that it was applied in South Africa. We warned Sanral, they didn't listen.
But the question remains.
Yes.
What will organizations like yourself do, given that you've been campaigning against the system for a very long time, and there are now conflicting messages from the governing party? In fact, I would go as far as to say the premier of the province, David Makura, if I'm not mistaken, he did say in the State of the Province address that the e-tolls actually must be scrapped. So that goes beyond him saying this in his capacity as chairperson of the ANC in Gauteng. Question is, therefore, Mr. Duvenage, what is it that you are going to do to ensure that this system does not exist anymore?
Well, in effect, this is the only way I can put this analogy. The lights are on, the music's playing, but there's no one on the dance floor. So Sanral thinks they're having a party, but they're not. No one's paying. They're barely covering the collection costs. So what we will continue to do with the public, who have been extremely vigilant on this matter, is to continue bringing the system down. What government needs to realize, and there's this discord and this disconnect between national and the people of Gauteng, including the ANC and the provincial leadership here, is that you cannot force a scheme onto the public that cannot work, cannot be enforced, that is against the will of the people. So you can say that e-tolls will be here to stay, or continue to stay. The reality is the money isn't coming in. So it's here. You can bring on a litigation war against your citizens if you want. Normally, government loses those wars in the long term. So this just...
But can citizens be guaranteed of that, that the longer they defy this system, it's not going to come back to bite them? Because I think the feeling out there is that if a summons is issued for me to go and pay, and I'm told that I'm not going to be able to renew my license if I don't pay,
that won't happen.
That's a problem for me, not for Wayne Duvenage.
No, hold on. It's unlawful not to withhold your vehicle license if you don't pay your e-tolls. That cannot happen. And if that does happen, we take that war on behalf of the public against the government. So what's happening now is that when people get summonses, they let OUTA know, we take that summons and we handled it for them. We handled that for them. They've issued 15,000 or so, they say. Only just over 2,000 to 3,000 of those sums, just over 3,000, sorry, have actually reached the recipient of those summonses, and just over 1,300 have indicated their intention to defend, which 90% are part of OUTA's supporter base. So we will fight this. The public will fight this. The civil disobedience campaigns are very necessary when government introduces irrational policies. This is one of them, and they will not win this, so they have to come to their senses on this matter.
Final question to you, Mr. Duvenage. The DA yesterday stating that they have learned of fresh talks to renew this contract, the SANRAL contract or the e-toll contract, which is meant to come to an end sometime this year.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about that?
We don't know anything about that. We're not discussing anything like that with the DA. So what they do is their indaba. All we do know is that the contract should have ended, and this was stated in Parliament by Dupuy Peters at the time, in December. They haven't gone out to tender. They haven't extended this contract. So again, there's a lot of confusion. SANRAL and government are not being clear on what's happening. But, you know, our view is, regardless of that, this reshuffling of funds is actually not a bailout for SANRAL. It's exactly what we wanted government to do. Take the National Treasury funds. You've increased the fuel levy from 24 billion rand in 2007 to over 70 billion rand. We only called for 10 cents to be allocated to this road. They would have got their 2 billion rand a year to finance these bonds. Sadly, they didn't do it, but now they're doing it in a belated manner. So, quite frankly, give the money to SANRAL so they can settle these bonds. We will not pay the e-tolls, and Mr. Mboweni and government needs to understand that once and for all.
Mr. Duvenage, thank you very much for your time. He is the CEO of OUTA, and we await the President's announcement on this issue, because it has been said now for a long time that the President is going to make some kind of announcement around the e-tolls.
We look forward to it.
we await with bated breath to see what the President is going to tell us. All right, now,